This is Mission Control Houston. 70 days, 15 hours, and 52 minutes into the 36th expedition to the International Space Station.
And we copy that, and we will make a note of that in our procedure. Thanks, Karen.
In that case, I am ready for step 3 whenever you guys are.
And Karen, we are ready here on the ground for step 3.
This is the live view inside the International Space Station's Destiny Laboratory, where flight engineer Karen Nyberg is working with Robonaut 2, getting some instruction from the Payload Operations Control Center as she sets the Robonaut up for a second day's worth of operations this week, putting a scanner in the robot's hand. The robot is doing some ground-commanded tasks today. As Nyberg is doing that work, her crewmates are busy with a variety of other activities on board right now. Commander Pavel Vinogradov is finishing up a private medical conference, and flight engineer Chris Cassidy is finishing some computer maintenance. He's getting ready to head for an exercise session on the Advanced Resistive Exercise device. Flight engineer Luca Parmitano also exercising at this time, while flight engineers Alexander Mazurkin and Fyodor Yurchikhin are shooting video for a Russian experiment that is designed to popularize the achievements of the Russian and Soviet spaceflight programs.
And it looks like we have a good grasp of the reader. Thanks.
Copy that. Good to hear.
It's Tuesday, July 23rd. This day on orbit is filled with science, but also all done with an eye towards some dynamic operations that are coming up later on this week. Commander Pavel Vinogradov and flight engineer Fyodor Yurchikhin, seen seated in this portrait, started their day together with some refresher training on the Toru system. That's the system that allows a cosmonaut in the Zvezda module to take over manual control of an approaching Progress cargo ship. This training is done routinely in the advance of the arrival of a new load of supplies, which happens to be targeted for launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome this Saturday afternoon, Houston time, with arrival at the station's Pirs docking compartment almost 6 hours later. There is another Progress vehicle, this one currently filled with trash, that is going to be vacating that docking port this coming Thursday afternoon. Vinogradov and Yurchikhin completed their first session of daily exercise following their Toru training. And after a lunch break, Vinogradov spent most of the rest of his day finishing packing 50 Progress with items that are to be disposed of, as well as reinstalling the cargo ship's docking mechanism. Yurchikhin will help him with that reinstallation after his work with Alexander Mazurkin to shoot video for a Russian documentary. Flight engineer Chris Cassidy focused his maintenance on science hardware today, removing components from the Marangoni experiment apparatus in the Kibo laboratory. That's an experiment into the Marangoni convection, which is designed to learn about heat transfer in microgravity. Cassidy also followed that up, changing out a lamp in the fluid physics experiment facility, and after his lunch completed some computer maintenance before moving on to his daily exercise. Flight engineer Luca Parmitano's planned second day of maintenance on the BioLab hardware in advance of extended ground testing and commissioning of that facility was deferred as part of a brief safety stand-down on non-standard maintenance tasks, so he moved up his scheduled routine inspection of portable fire extinguishers and breathing apparatus to his morning. Just before lunch, Parmitano took time to speak with officials of the European space industries who are gathered at the Altec Center in Italy about the progress of his mission. Flight engineer Karen Nyberg started her day with exercise, working out on the ARED, and then moved to a second day of operations with Robonaut, this time setting up for the afternoon's ground-commanded operations. Robonaut is a test bed to improve the capabilities of robots on orbit to complete tasks and potentially assist human crew members with operations in the future. On Wednesday, the crew will continue their science operations, more operations with Marangoni experiment and the binary colloidal alloy test, among others, along with regular daily maintenance and plans to close the hatch on the Russian cargo ship that's due to depart the station on Thursday, thereby opening up a spot for a new Progress vehicle that's scheduled to arrive this coming weekend.
To do ARED, and that's a good place to do ARED. What the heck? Just go ahead and do SSC 18 now. Take your time, and I'll use the cupola SSC for ARED.
Okay, we'll do, Chris, and we'll be looking to make sure that Ethernet cable is plugged in as well. If you can give us a holler when you check that. And I do have words on the SS3, but that's kind of detailed. I'm probably, do you still want those right now, or do you want to wait until you get it signed?
The cable for 18 is plugged in, and I'm ready for SSC3 right now.
Okay, so we're looking to switch SS3 to the Node 1 WAP. And so on SS3, we're looking to perform the following steps. First is go to Start, Settings, then Network Connections. The second step is right-click the wireless network connection and select Properties. And the third step is select Wireless Networks tab. The fourth step is move ISS underscore MSL underscore 2.4 gigahertz to the top of the list and select OK. And step 5 is run the laptop configurator, select wireless, select reconfigure, and this fixes the wireless settings to default. I realize those are a lot of words, so let me know if you need me to recap.
Nope, I got it, and we'll put all that in work right now. Thanks a lot.
Hey, copy that, Chris. Thank you much.
Houston Station, it is Pearl. I'm completing my private conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pavel. We will normalize.
Thank you.
You're looking at the International Space Station Flight Directors Console. The flight director leading the team here in Mission Control Houston this morning is Chris Edelin. To Mr. Edelin's right, astronaut Scott Tingle is the spacecraft communicator today. He's the voice that you just heard talking with Chris Cassidy about some computer setups, and Pavel Vinogradov indicating that he's completed his private medical conference. The current view is what is being seen by Robonaut. The R2 robot has been set up in the Destiny laboratory for some operations yesterday and today. Yesterday, the Robonaut was being teleoperated by Karen Nyberg by means of some essentially virtual reality helmet and gloves that she was wearing. Today, Robonaut is being commanded by the ground. You can see him holding a what that is a detector. It's called an RFID, radio frequency identification device. Nyberg set up the Robonaut for those operations today. Robonaut himself has, in fact, been explaining to people what he's doing. The details of today's operations have been online because the robot has been tweeting. You can follow the Robonaut yourself. He's at Astro Robonaut on Twitter. Earlier today, he tweeted that today's my first time using our RFID scanner. I'll scan items in a stowage bag, which are tracked in the wireless inventory management system. You can see that scanner there, this view, which is seen through the cameras that serve as Robonaut's eyes. Earlier today, he also tweeted, RFID scanning is something the astronauts have to do regularly to track the hundreds of items floating around on board the ISS. While getting ready for his operations, the Robonaut was even engaging with folks on Twitter. A question was asked by @SpaceKate, how do you actually manage to track the inventory, Robonaut? The reply was, tracking inventory aboard the station is one of multiple tasks I hope to take over from my human crewmates, freeing them up for science. As I said, Robonaut does tweet on days that he's awake and working. You can follow him at Astro Robonaut on Twitter. The operations with Robonaut today, scheduled to be completed in a couple of hours. Karen Nyberg will be packing up the robot and the associated equipment.
I am.
Excellent. So what we're going to try to do now is just try to get it reset a little bit and see if it, when we plug it back in, that it works right. So step number one would be to close the IMS application on the barcode reader. And then step number two would be to perform a hard reset, the power button and the soft reset button at the same time. And then following that, step number three would be an additional soft reset, which is just the soft reset button only. And then after that, step four would be plug it in and see if it charges. And I realize that's a lot of words, so I can call them up to you one at a time as you go through it if you need it.
Okay, step one is complete. Say again, step two.
Step two, perform a hard reset. So that would be holding the power button and the soft reset button at the same time.
What is the soft reset button? Is that little RS button below, underneath the power button?
Yep, that's the one. And recommended to use the stylus for that.
Okay, that stuff's complete, and it says that something's loading.
Okay, and looking for, after it's done with that reset, we'll be looking to do an additional soft reset, which would be just the soft reset button only.
Okay, that's complete, waiting for it to load. Okay, that's complete.
Excellent, and now we're just looking to plug it in and see if it charges.
Okay, it looks like there's a setting up process taking on the barcode reader right now.
Okay, that should take a couple.
I'm guessing I should give it a second.
Yeah, we'll get. They're predicting a couple of minutes here. Sorry, we didn't tell you that up front. But after it gets through with that, then feel free to plug it in and see if it charges.
Okay, will do. Houston Station, which network should I select? ISS AP1, ISS AP2?
They're telling us that should automatically select.
Okay, I'll give it a little more time.
Okay, copy that.
The Robonaut is a technology demonstration. It's being developed out of the Johnson Space Center in Houston. The principal investigator is Dr. Ron Diffler, also being done in conjunction with GM to evolve robotic capabilities on orbit and to determine just what tasks robots can perform on space stations, whether on their own or in concert with their human crewmates, as well as just to prove the ability of a robot to sustain operations for an extended period on board a space station. Robonaut has been on orbit far longer than any of its current human crewmates and is expected to remain on board and operating throughout the life of the International Space Station.
Houston Station on 2.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen. We got you.
Yeah, it still hasn't selected on its own. It has a page called Wireless Information, and it says Select a Network and press Options.
Checking. Okay, Karen. I guess we're looking for you to click the X or exit, and it should set itself up.
Okay, that's complete. Now I have a Windows screen with a My Device and a Recycle Bin.
And stand by. We're checking. Hey, Karen, we think that possibly the hard reset wasn't given enough time there. Can we go back, and we'd like to redo that step there and perform the hard reset, which is the power button and the soft reset button at the same time. Following that, we'll give it a minute and a half to 2 minutes, and then we should see the basic window come up there, and we'll confirm that with you when we get there.
Okay, here comes another hard reset.
Instructions being relayed to Karen Nyberg for a software reset for the Robonaut as she continues with the operations today. While we all wait for that, to remind you that preparations are continuing for the launch of a new Progress vehicle to the International Space Station. And we actually have a few photographs of that preparation going on at the launch site, the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. That is the Progress vehicle, the black colored spacecraft. In other photos, you can see it being mated to its protective fairing, which will cover the Progress as it travels to orbit through the densest parts of the atmosphere. The plans call for the hatch on Progress number 50, which is currently at the International Space Station at the Pirs module, to be closed tomorrow for its undocking on Thursday afternoon at 3:44 Houston time. That'll be in advance of its destructive entry into the atmosphere above the Pacific Ocean.
Houston, it's on a date-time properties window.
The new Progress vehicle, number 52, is on its path to the launch pad for a launch this coming Saturday afternoon at 3:45 Houston time. That will begin a 4-orbit journey to the International Space Station. The 52P is due to dock to the now then vacant Pirs docking compartment's Nader docking port at 9:26 Houston time on Saturday evening. That'll be Sunday morning time at the launch site. And of course, the launch and the docking will all be covered live on NASA television, and you can see the times right there.
Close until we get to the Windows desktop.
Okay, we're at the Windows desktop, and it looks like I would expect it to look.
Okay, looking for the soft reset at this time, Karen.
We're looking at the scene inside the International Space Station's Destiny Laboratory. Flight engineer Karen Nyberg intermittently visible in the background behind the Robonaut.
Okay, Houston, that's complete, and it looks like the windows that I would expect.
No, that's excellent, Karen. We're ready to plug it in and see if it charges.
Nyberg is working in concert with the ground teams on a second day of operations with the Robonaut. Yesterday, she wore instrumented goggle and gloves and teleoperated Robonaut through her own hand and head motions, manipulating the robot's limbs. Today, it's being commanded from the ground to perform a set of tasks that involve that barcode reader that it's holding in its right hand.
Houston Station, I'm getting no indication that it is charging, no LED.
Okay, Karen, we appreciate the help on that. You can stand down from that now. We're going to take that information and mull it over down here and see what the next step's going to be.
Copy that.
Thanks a million for the help, though.
While the ground teams consider their next step, Nyberg will return to the tasks she was involved with, conducting an inventory of supplies in the Human Research Facility. Make note of the fact that the work is continuing on the ground to find the cause of the water leak in flight engineer Luca Parmitano's spacesuit a week ago today during the second spacewalk, the second U.S. spacewalk he conducted with Chris Cassidy. Water leaked into his helmet during the spacewalk, and that led to an early termination of that EVA. The ground teams in Houston have been working since last Tuesday trying to isolate the source of that problem. A troubleshooting plan is to be delivered to the crew today for their review, with some procedures for them to work through anticipated by Thursday, with the hope that they would actually be working on the suit again by Friday this week, looking for where that water came from. In the meantime, the crews have been told to stand down on the usual post-spacewalk scrub of the suit's cooling loops. Teams want to make sure that there's no evidence in the suit right now that would indicate what happened that might be removed doing a standard post-EVA loop scrub. Teams in Houston are also working to get additional repair hardware up to the crew. Some tools that could be used by the crew to change out components of the spacesuit that might be determined to be faulty, and granted at this point no such determination has been made, but with some educated guesses about what it might be, some additional tools are being hand carried from Houston. They're leaving Houston today, headed for Baikonur to get them loaded on board the Progress 52 vehicle that is going to launch to the International Space Station this Saturday. In the meantime, today NASA has announced that it's appointed a mishap investigation board to investigate the July 16th early termination of the spacewalk, as well as develop a set of lessons learned from that incident and suggest ways to prevent a similar thing from happening in the future. The board will begin its work on Friday, August the 2nd, in coordination with a NASA engineering team that's already examining the spacesuit and the life support equipment that Luca Parmitano used during that excursion. The team is looking to determine why water built up inside Parmitano's helmet. This mishap investigation board is chaired by Chris Hansen, the International Space Station chief engineer at the Johnson Space Center here in Houston. The other board members include astronaut Mike Foreman, who is a veteran spacewalker himself, Richard Fullerton, the International Space Station Safety and Mission Assurance Lead in the Office of Safety and Mission Assurance at NASA headquarters, Sudhakar Rajula, the Human Factors Specialist here at JSC, and Joe Pellicchiati, Chief Engineer at NASA's Engineering and Safety Center at the Goddard Space Flight Center. The members will be gathering relevant information, analyzing the facts, conducting any tests they determine are necessary, and to try to identify the cause or causes of this anomaly, plus any contributing factors, and then make recommendations to the NASA administrator to prevent a similar incident from happening on future spacewalks. This investigation, as we say again, will run in parallel with the engineering analysis that's already underway. The team focused on resolving the equipment trouble in an effort to enable U.S. spacewalks to resume. The board will be looking also broadly at past operations and maintenance, at quality assurance, and other aspects of flight control and organizational factors. The board's responsibility is to make observations and recommendations that can be applied to improve the safety of all of NASA's human spaceflight activities. And although there are currently standing down for spacewalks on board the station, training for future spacewalks continues in Houston at the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, where astronauts simulate weightlessness underwater and practice EVA tasks. This is a live look in at the NBL right now. to our left, with the suit with the red stripes, NASA astronaut Reid Wiseman. His spacewalking colleague today, European Space Agency astronaut Alexander Gerst. The two of them are rehearsing repairs to a nitrogen tank assembly on the P1 truss, as well as working through potential issues with stowing the old nitrogen tanks. These two astronauts are training in anticipation of their first space flight. They're on track to launch to the International Space Station next spring in the May or June timeframe of 2014. They'll be riding on Soyuz number 39, along with veteran cosmonaut Max Sarayev, who was a flight engineer on the International Space Station for expeditions 21 and 22 back in 2009 and 2010. They will be arriving at the space station to join Expedition 40, commanded by NASA astronaut Steve Swanson and his crewmates, flight engineers Alexander Skvortsov and Oleg Artemyev. You can see the German flag on Alex Gerst's shoulder there. Gerst is a geophysicist and earth scientist with a doctorate in natural sciences from the Institute of Geophysics at the University of Hamburg in Germany. He was selected as an astronaut by the European Space Agency in May of 2009 and completed his basic astronaut training in November 2010 and is in training now for his first space flight. His colleague in the tank today is NASA's Reid Wiseman, a commander in the United States Navy. He was selected as a NASA astronaut in August of 2009. These two astronauts, like all astronauts, undergo this sort of training as perhaps the best way for them to get a real feel for what it's like to work in a microgravity environment. It's not perfect, they say. You still have the weight of the suit. Sometimes you have to carry the weight of the suit yourself, and a lot of those shortcomings are covered by the safety and utility divers who are in the water with them. But it does give the crew members a pretty good feel for what it's like to work in that environment. They do this training to develop skills. Sometimes, as is the case today, they work through a timelined spacewalk to rehearse tasks and to see how they are completed against the scheduled time for them to be completed. This is, as I say again, a live look in at the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, about 35 feet or so below the water surface. NASA astronaut Reid Wiseman and European Space Agency astronaut Alex Gerst in training for spacewalk tasks, be prepared for when they arrive to the International Space Station in the spring of next year. The International Space Station is currently flying about 258 miles above the far southern Indian Ocean. It's currently moved into an area where it is out of the range of television communications with Mission Control. Still voice communication, though. We'll take that opportunity of not getting a look at what's going on board the station now To have a look at what went on a few hours ago, this morning Luca Parmitano spent some time discussing his mission with representatives of the European space industry, who are all gathered in Turin, Italy. We'll have a look at that right now.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I'm ready for the event.
ESA, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Jules here from ESA in ITEX Turin. How do you hear me?
Buongiorno, I read you loud and clear. How do you read me?
I give now the word to Fabrizio Tuzzi of the Agenzia Spaziale Italiana.
Buongiorno, signor
In agenzia tu partivi per la stazione spaziale.
When you left for the International Space Station, I wanted to ask you, after the first 2 months of activities, a first set of impressions, of emotions, of activities that you have performed.
Signor Direttore Generale, innanzitutto buongiorno.
Director, good day.
Benvenuto a bordo.
Welcome on board the space station. Here we are in the Columbus module. And I thank you for the question, which allows me to expound upon the activities that we perform on the space station. The first 2 months were very, very intense. Possibly the most intense months of the whole mission, because we had a series of activities that are nominal, of maintenance and science on board the station, but also some events that were pretty particular, like the arrival of the ATV spacecraft and the 2 extravehicular activities. From a personal standpoint of emotions, I really feel like I'm living a dream that is not ending when I wake up in the morning, but instead it continues. It's wonderful to be here on board with the idea of doing something valuable, like the science that we perform on station. It has immediate effects on the Earth. The bleeding-edge technology that we test here on station is used on Earth and also for the future exploration. From a standpoint of specific events, I'm very happy that the ATV worked perfectly. It docked perfectly and brought on board many things that we are in need of. So for me, the first 2 months definitely positive, and I hope that the mission will only keep getting better in this sense. Another question, Luca, about the EVA that you conducted, the 2 EVAs that you conducted. What are your emotions? What was left in you? And for the ATV, also, what emotions did you feel about being in the void of space?
Guardi, mi piacerebbe avere un vocabolario, un'eloquenza.
Look, I would love to have a vocabulary that would allow me to express fully the sensations that I felt when I went out for the first time in the void of vacuum, protected only by the spacesuit. Unfortunately, I'm neither a poet nor an intellectual. I really am at a loss for words to express it. It's something that is truly changing you from the inside when you see our world from above with its colors. It's an explosion of colors, separated only from the visor of the helmet. It's a wonderful feeling of being born again. I talk about an explosion of colors because while I was on the robotic arm and when I saw dawn for the first time in space from outside, dawn arrives in very little bit of time, from darkness, which is a complete absence of color. Everything is swallowed by this explosion of colors that are beautiful. I was over Africa, so all reds, yellows, and all these colors filled my eyes. This is something that I will always bring with me. No one will ever be able to erase it. Even the events of the second EVA that won't be able to dampen the desire to do that again and to complete the work that I've started, that unfortunately I wasn't able to complete. Fortunately, the first EVA went really well, very quickly, so we were able to accomplish all our goals, which were to complete the installation of the RGBs, that are large bars that are used to move the radiators in case of issues. So we brought them to their final installation point. And then we brought back some experiments that were outside for a certain amount of time that will be brought back on the ground to analyze the effects of vacuum and space temperatures on certain materials. And then we also took a broken video camera that is inside here with us, inside the station. And we also started the connection of a series of cables that we would have had to complete during the second EVA. A big hug from all of us here on station. We are following you from here, and break a leg.
Crepi il lupo, io ringrazio tantissimo tutto il personale terra per il supporto.
And I also thank all the ground personnel for the extraordinary support that I constantly feel. Hi, Luca. We met in Rome and we spoke a few times. I wanted to ask you, the space station is one of the few satellites that we're able to repair. You talked about EVA repairs. What difference did you find between repairing the pump down on Earth and up there on station? This is also a great question. For me, on station,
è stato un po' più complesso.
It was a little bit more complex because I didn't have the support of the instructors that are always very attentive to these things, and you don't have that security blanket of somebody knowing a little more than you, plus the surprises that are inevitable in the space environment. But there is something that I brought here as a surprise that helped me a lot in repairing the pump. This came with the ATV. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to set it all up when I repaired the pump, but this is our brand new toolbox, which is really extraordinary. It's a little masterpiece of organization that I would love to have in my garage, something like this. It's truly extraordinary. I hope to be able to use it as much as possible as long as I'm here on board the station. As far as the pump goes, I'm happy that the work went well and the ground support was indispensable to resolve the problems that present themselves. And I'm happy that Columbus is once again ready for any event. Luca, naturally, all of us at ESA were with you. We followed the mission with great interest. We were close to you while you were having trouble with the EVA. We're very happy that everything's going well. Bye.
Grazie tantissimo.
Thank you very much.
Altec di Thales Alenia Space.
Altec from Thales Alenia Space.
Parlo a nome di tutti i miei colleghi.
In Rome, we talk with all our colleagues. Unfortunately, in this room today, it's only a subset of them because there are hundreds of people that have worked for the space station in the past 2 years. So obviously, what you're doing for us is the realization for us, seeing that you are doing things that we have been trying to do, so you represent all of us. I wanted to ask you a question. Aside from the space station modules that are there permanently, there are also some that come and go, like the ATV, that dock, and the others like Cygnus, that in September will arrive, and then others will arrive. How do you manage and how do you live this traffic on space station up there? This is a new question that I've never heard before, and I'm happy that I'm able to tell you that here on board, we're always very happy when a new spacecraft arrives, whether it's Progress, whether it's ATV or Cygnus. Surely for Cygnus, it'll be special because it's the first time, and whenever something new arrives, it's a little bit more fun. So we're happy because it's a new challenge, it's a new moment, it's a new variation to the daily plan that we face every day. And also because new things arrive, new opportunities to install new experiments, and possibly new maintenance materials to repair and maintain, preventative. And then we have some surprises like special foods and something new. So for us, this traffic is definitely not a nuisance, but actually something exciting that we like. And also, this is perhaps a detail that is not easy to comprehend, but being able to see a spacecraft arriving near the station is very cool. To be able to see a little dot that little by little becomes a spacecraft in all its perfection that has traveled for millions of kilometers, that arrives and docks with the station with extraordinary precision. It's really a sensation of accomplishment that honors our engineers and all those who work on the space programs. Thank you, Luca. Enjoy your work from Torino and Altec. Thank you, all the men of Thales Alenia, and thanks to all those in Turin for their hospitalities they've demonstrated in the past. I'm going to pass the microphone to the president of the Piedmont region, since we're in region.
Buongiorno Luca, sono Roberto Cotta.
Good day, Luca. This is Roberto Cotta. First of all, I'm very happy to be able to speak with you on behalf of all the people of Piedmont. They told me that you have attended the Umberto Nazionale. Not as a student, unfortunately. It seemed like a wonderful place. I was there as a guest, speaking with the students. Something that will always stay in my memories as a symbol of Italy at work, because it's a great, wonderful reality. It's a healthy and living environment. Perfect. Thank you. So this is a renewal of an invitation to the region when you will come back from this experience. I wanted to ask you a question that maybe a lot of people ask you. The experiments that you perform, what type of impact can they have on our life in the future? If you could give us an example of research that was done in the past in space and that then had an impact versus new research, new scientific findings, or research that you're performing today? Thank you for the question, because actually, perhaps we talk too little about the exceptional impact that the International Space Station science has on Earth. First of all, it's a reason for Italy to boast. Here on station, we will start an experiment coming from Italy called ICE. ICE. It's an experiment about combustion of biological fuels, which tends to minimize the poisonous emissions. So it's an experiment of green air, which tends to unify business and environment for having fuels that are renewable and that don't pollute. So impacts on economy and ecology. Other experiments that will have impact briefly.
Spinal ultrasound.
One is called
Facciamo delle ecografie alla spina dorsale.
Spinal ultrasound. So we do some echocardiograms on the spine. So using a machine no bigger than a laptop, we can diagnose problems with the spine. Something that right now is only possible with very complex machines like MRIs and scanners. So in places that are hard to access, being able to bring these large machines is impossible. So throughout this research that we're conducting on board, we'll be able to diagnose even in very remote areas. So again, immediate impact. And these are just a couple of examples of what we do on board. We're also working on a diet that is hopefully able to minimize the calcium loss. We on orbit have rapid osteoporosis due to the lack of gravity. If we're able to establish a link between what we're eating and bone loss, we're able to transfer this down to Earth, and we should be able to help millions of people on Earth suffering from osteoporosis. These are examples of science that we're conducting on board. The experiments are hundreds that we're conducting on board for all year round, throughout the entire time that the station is up. What do you miss about Earth?
No, le domande non sono mai scontate. Spero che
questions are never trite. I hope the questions aren't either. I miss my daughters. I'm a father of 2 girls, 3 and 6. I see them once a week, so not being able to hug them is truly hard. So this is a part that is most melancholy. Something a little more normal. I miss a nice espresso, the way they can only make in Italy. So here on board, we still don't have the technology that allows us to have a good coffee. And finally, I am from Sicily. So for me, summer has always been tied to the idea of the beach and the breeze out at sea. So this environment that has no smells and is a little bit sterile is something that I miss. But I'm happy to be here, and I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't trade the work that I'm doing for anything else. I'd say that these are great answers. Thank you. Congratulations, and a big hug from all of us.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Houston Station, thank you very much.
And thank you, ESA and participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
That event with Luca Parmitano took place earlier this morning, 7:40 Houston time this morning, so concluded just over 4 hours ago. If you missed part of it, you have another opportunity to see it coming up at the top of this hour. This event is scheduled to be the first item in today's NASA TV video file, which comes up at 11 a.m. Central Time. The video file today also includes items on the Hubble Space Telescope and the Orion vehicle's heat shield. Daily look at events all around the nation's space agency will be coming up at 11 a.m. Central Time. There are a couple of other special events coming up on NASA television this afternoon. The first of them at 1 o'clock Central Time. NASA TV will broadcast a Google Plus Hangout from several NASA centers as the agency prepares to fly 2 unmanned aircraft over the Atlantic Ocean hurricanes for this summer. The mission is known as HS-3, NASA's Hurricane and Severe Storm Sentinel. It's a 5-year project that first took to the field last year in 2012 from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. HS-3 is investigating the roles of the large-scale environment and storm-scale internal processes in hurricane formation and intensity change in the Atlantic. The scientists are using 2 NASA Global Hawk aircraft during this campaign. One is instrumented to measure the environment around the tropical cyclone, and the other has instruments that look into the storms. The participants in the hangout, starting at 1 o'clock Central Time this afternoon, will hear about last year's mission and the preparations that are underway at Wallops for the upcoming flights. The HS-3 lead scientist will be there to explain how NASA can look into hurricanes, as well as a Global Hawk pilot will be there to talk about remote flying over those tropical cyclones. So that HS-3 Google Plus Hangout is coming up at 1 o'clock this afternoon. At 2:30 Central Time this afternoon, another Google Plus Hangout on air. This one dedicated to the memory of Sally Ride, who died a year ago, but her impact on millions is still felt. The Celebrating Sally Hangout on air will discuss her role as a role model and her influence on mentorship to women worldwide. So those are both coming up this afternoon. NASA TV video file at 11 a.m. Central Time. The Google Plus Hangout on the storm at 1 o'clock, and the Sally Ride event coming up at 2:30 Central Time this afternoon. Our next live report on space station activities will be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central. At a mission elapsed time of 70 days, 16 hours, and 50 minutes into the International Space Station's Expedition 36, this is Mission Control, Houston.